Greetings from National Headquarters. Today we're here with Jed Collins, who is a former NFL football player and currently is heading up the money vehicle financial education for NFL rookies and for college students. ATO has had the pleasure of having Jed on our team talking about financial matters for college students. He has online courses, and we've made those available to ATOs for a few years now. Jed is in Indianapolis. He's going to be talking to the Indianapolis Colts rookies a little later this morning, but we got him in the studio here for a conversation. So, Jed, welcome to Indianapolis. This is your first time in Indy.
This is my first time. I got to settle in last night, see a beautiful sunset, drive down the Speedway this morning. So far so good.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about NFL just to kick things off. So, what will you be telling the rookies today, or the team in general, as it relates to financial issues? They're making a lot of money compared to most college graduates right out of college. So, what are their issues? What do you tell them?
So it's getting them to start to see the pieces of a puzzle. I love to call it the hazards to your wealth. Yes, that starts with saving and getting them to see the differentiation between saving and investing, but to have a handout. And I love when I get to work with your men, that handout tells me everything. I can look before the room and say, this third of guys, that handout's going to be there when we leave the room in about an hour. This third of the guys, they're going to write a few things, and this third of the guys, the paper is going to be full. And so I obviously have more of a deeper conversation with the third that is filling it completely out. The best questions actually come from the second group, because they're maybe not as attuned to the first group who is saying, I kind of know some of this and you're helping me piece the things together. This group is seeing those things for the first time and really just trying to say, this is a whole new language that I'm just learning the definitions of the words to. I don't even know how to put the sentences together. And so to see those light bulbs go off, to see not just the kind of time horizon, but then each session, something that I've really driven myself to do is get better at presenting in person. And the one thing we learned is less is more. Less is more. I would love to 5, 10 years ago when I started doing this, tell you everything I know about money. I'm a certified financial planner. I can go for hours on what I understand about this thing now. But that doesn't help you. Me trying to impress with how much I understand doesn't let you walk out. And so each session is really driven down to a singular action. What is one thing that every person in this room needs to do? And to see that light bulb go off of money is an important concept. It's going to set up my NFL dream or my college dream. But then here's one specific action that I go take. That's a really impactful tool.
And even the lowest paid rookie is making substantially, exponentially more than a typical college graduate, a typical ATO who's graduating. So is it harder in your experience for guys who are making a ton of money to grasp this concept versus someone who gets out and is making, $35,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year?
The old saying is aim small, miss small. So with less, you have less of an opportunity to make bigger and bigger mistakes. I like to say every year in the league is a decade in real life. You look at a guy making $60,000. Yeah, the average NFL rookie is going to make $750,000, $750,000. That's a lot of money. Workshop number 2 is, of that $750,000, you only get to make half, and depending on what state you're in, less than half. I got to work with the New York Jets, who are technically actually in New Jersey, so it kind of confuses them on state taxes, which just talking to the Los Angeles Rams. Those guys make less than 50 cents every time they play at home. And that's amazing concept for them to truly understand. But the reality is the challenges are the exact same. You, as a young man, you're handed your first paycheck. You want to show, one, you probably want to impress some of the opposite sex, some kind of pressure to do that. You want to show amongst your friends, and you want to show for yourself. Most of the NFL players aren't coming from rich, luxurious backgrounds, lifestyles. So the moment that they want to show, look at what I have made of myself. And it is kind of a hurdle, just like any man. It's not about who you are at 23. It's about who you become. And that every year kind of continues. And so to see that connection of, I'm a 23-year-old graduate, I went into the NFL, I went and got a traditional job and started down a career path. You're faced with the same challenges. I don't make all the money that I thought I made. Taxes is real, and we try to shift that to a choice in society. But then it's, what are my priorities? And it's really setting that stage of, I can accomplish a lot of things. I just can't have everything right now.
So I want to talk about your NFL career in a couple of minutes, but let's talk about traditional college student. An ATO who's graduating is going to make, 50. Let's on average.
I like easy numbers.
50, yeah, absolutely. So what, when you talk to college men and ATOs in particular, what are the things that they are most interested in taking away from? What are the tips that you find that are most used by college students that they hadn't thought of before?
I love to give them a framework of every paycheck that they make. And this is a framework that works at 50,000 and it works at 500,000. So I really try to institute not that B word budget. I understand if you sit down and tell a room full of college graduates, hey, we're going to go through a budgeting workshop, half of them are going to leave. So I really try to frame it around you seeing that paycheck as your employees. Now, there's a great saying about 3 men breaking rocks. You walk up to him, the first man, you say, what are you doing? He says, I'm breaking rocks. Second man, what are you doing? I'm earning a living. Third man, what are you doing? I'm building a cathedral. That same story translates to your money. The first person says, I'm making a paycheck. Second person says, I'm trying to buy a car. Third person says, I'm looking at my employees. I'm looking at the thing that is going to make everything else in my life work. And getting to that third mindset of seeing a paycheck and understanding not just that you're receiving it, but you get to tell it what to go do. Having that kind of ammunition, having that behavioral change in a young student is really the light bulb that I love to see. Yes, we can get to investing. Yes, we can get to kind of the more interesting or kind of sexy stuff, but it starts with that foundation. And the other big hurdle that students today are having is twofold. One, the concept of, and we were talking about this before, how big money has gotten. Billions is a word that you and I didn't even say growing up, and now it's thrown around right, left. If you're not, you don't even want to become an entrepreneur who has $1 million business. You want $1 billion business. They just don't understand the exponential change that has given to money. $50,000 is still a lot. It's still enough to start your world and to get a lot of the things you want. But the reflection in the mirror of I'm not a billionaire is just an unachievable kind of standard that they're setting. Then on the flip side is the social media lens that gives students a hack, a fast track, a trick. Everybody wants that silver bullet. Everybody wants to speed up a decade of work in a year. And the reality is anybody who has achieved anything great understands excellence is hard. Excellence is how much pain you can endure to better yourself than everybody else. You don't start out there, you earn it. And so we come into the world of money today as a young person. I hate using the GameStop saga as a great example, but it is a beautiful example that a group of people saw a loophole. And some, very few, but some got very wealthy on a loophole. And so now that whole generation of people who were attuned to that are looking for the loophole. The reality is there's not that many loopholes out there.
Social media, just like has been something of a comparison game. So people see the beautiful pictures on Instagram and thinks everyone's life is perfect, and so they feel bad about their life. I suppose the same could be said with TikTok and these holes that you say, these loopholes that somebody puts up at TikTok. Hey, you can make $1 million doing this, and then everyone thinks, yeah, let's make $1 million doing that.
And it's from life insurance to real estate. It's simple. It's easy. All you need 12 bucks. Let's walk into the next room. We'll get you going, and you'll be a millionaire by the end of the year. That is the story that is being sold because that's what is bought in 30 seconds or less. And yes, the financial funny mirror of social media, I've met a lot of people and had those conversations around, one, most of the cars are being leased or rented. They're not their cars. They're their car for a day. You can spend $600 and go get a picture in front of a Lamborghini if you really wanted to. The ones where just stacks and stacks of money are just, that's how you kind of get somebody to watch your videos. You flow through a stack of cash and you look at it today and you kind of smile and you go, I don't know anybody who carries cash like that anymore. The disconnect for us today, money is not a physical, tangible thing. It's an intangible kind of number on a screen. And so it's so interesting to me that on social media that has such an appeal to see actual physical money. But yes, the financial funny mirror of every social media, I would love, and I'm trying to build more of this, especially as an entrepreneur, which is also a glorified thing on social media today. They don't tell you about the roller coaster. They don't tell you about the moments sitting in a room by yourself, feeling overwhelmed, looking up. The mountain has gotten bigger somehow, and you just continue to think of, well, I can't do this. But then you go on social media and all you see is, look how amazing and confident and proud and I'm running, and look at all these things. People meet me and they go, looks like Money Vehicle's doing crazy. You're everywhere. I go, yeah, that's what I want the world to see. It's not easy. Nothing is easy. And anytime you find success in a capitalistic market, somebody's coming to take it. And so that is kind of the misconception of just being out in a world where it says only show one side. If we could and somebody would watch it, it would be amazing to see a social media of, here is the reality checks of TikTok, and that could be its own platform in and of itself, but it would at least be a more encouraging tone to know nobody's perfect, not everything's always going to go your way. I have to learn to overcome hurdles. As a father, father of young kids, I almost want to manifest ways for them to fail, because you have to learn that skill of seeing something, not achieving it, and then going back to work to go and get it.
Yeah, and you're not seeing TikTok videos, for example, of how to open a savings account.
No, not enough at least.
And I was amazed that most college students haven't thought about opening any kind of financial account at a bank or anywhere.
And it's a combination of some of the newer technology has caveats to where you don't instantly need one. But I will make a proclamation to say every billionaire in the world has checking and savings accounts. They're not fun, they're not sexy, they're not going to make you a millionaire, but they are the foundations. And with our technology today, with the apps, the ability to have some of the automatic transactions that are able, you can, before your paycheck even comes in, divvy up into different accounts, into different directions for different responsibilities of your life, have all of those decisions already made. And that's why I love starting with the foundations, starting with the principles, because I don't want to teach somebody something that's going to work today. Our goal at Money Vehicle is to teach you the principles, the themes that are going to come up throughout your life and money. Yes, the action can change and the degrees or the percentages will differ as your paycheck gets bigger, as your life changes. When you buy a house, your paycheck changes. But as you look at the true themes and kind of principles of money, that's where we wanted to start. And those accounts, making the automatic transfers and really getting them to have these decisions become habits, that's where we know success is going to be had.
Yeah, so let's talk about Money Vehicle for a couple of minutes. So that's your bread and butter. An online, part of it at least, is online when you're not in person with the NFL or in front of ATO when you join us. It's an online seminar series of financial teachings basically aimed at this age group, generally speaking. So the thought behind Money Vehicle in terms of delivering the kind of financial information that you want to college students, what are the top 5 sessions of Money Vehicle in terms of just getting undergraduates engaged, and what are they going to learn?
And that was the first challenge that I had was I love getting in front of students. I love being in that room. I've been doing this for 10 years now. And the question always to me was, well, how can you teach more people? And somebody put it in my head, and I have it written down in my journal, Jed, you're going to impact 1 million people. And I remember sitting in the meeting and him saying that and walking away, sitting in my journal that night and going, I can never teach 1 million people live. Those numbers just don't add up. So how can I actually make that happen? And that's why I shifted to that virtual sense to be able to scale it. And as we look at students today, the first concept that we want them to get is money vehicle. Why we chose that as the title, why that is the name and the brand, is because it gets you to see money differently. So often we see money as the destination. We see money as what we want to accomplish in life. Money is nothing but a vehicle, a tool. I love to call it the verb of the sentence. It is something you do something with. It is not why you are doing things. And so that is really the first concept we want students to start to see. Then in the program, we have about 12 steps, always continuing to add more, getting more deeper and deeper into different questions and feedbacks from students. But we really try to pride ourselves in looking at this roadmap, playing into the vehicle analogy, and saying, what are your first 12 steps on your path to financial freedom? At the end of Money Vehicle, you're not going to be financially free, you're not going to be a millionaire, but you're going to be 12 steps closer to where you want to go. Maybe we can equate that to the first mile of the journey. But as we look at that, no doubt we have to start with an income, which is really our keys to our money vehicle. Can't even get in without that. The big concept there is to continue to invest in yourself. Everybody wants to know, what's the new trick? What's the new thing? For the last decade, it's been coding. Have all your kids, have everybody go do coding. And now in the last 6 months, it's come out, man, in like 3 or 4 years, we're not going to have coders. Artificial intelligence is going to do that. And you say, well, I've been setting up my whole life doing this one skill. How do you prepare for the unknown? You invest in yourself. You continue to build your tool belt. So looking at something as simple as your income and saying, I'm not improving myself for a job, I'm improving myself, period. And that is how you can start to prepare for that unknown world. Any good journey begins with the end in mind. We have to set that GPS location. Driving here today, I set it in, where do I want to go? And then I got to see the twists, the turns that come up to get here. And so really setting those financial goals is such a tough one for students because they look at it and they go, my financial goal is to be a millionaire and to retire. That's not necessarily what we want it to be. We want it to be seen through a month or a year window. What can you do today that will come to fruition in a year? Or what can you get accomplished this month? And to really start to break it down into shorter time horizons. Of course, we go into that money buckets kind of philosophy. And then you have to, everybody kind of needs to understand the concept of compound interest. Why we look at a paycheck and see our employees is because money actually does go to work for you if you put it into the right lane. And so to truly see money as that employee, I love to introduce students to how long they see money and what type of or. Are they a spendor, savor, or investor? And as you look at spendors, they see money on a day-to-day time frame. Savors, month to month, that year to year, which is that first step. And then you look at investors who look at money through a decade-long window. At 23, very rarely has anybody ever thought, well, what is this $1,000 going to look like at 33? If we can get them to start to see things like an investor, view money as that vehicle, that is truly the first kind of big picture moment. And then we can go start setting up the plan to get there. That's when the foundational accounts come in. That's when you start building your financial reputation and your credit score. That's when you get to start turning the engine on and going and investing and really looking all the way through. If I could summarize it, and we kind of started at the end when we started building money vehicles, what is the singular action? Less is more. What is the one thing we want every college student to go do? It was open a Roth IRA. I thought if we could have students do that at 23, one, they understand compound interest, they understand investing, they have their foundational accounts, they set a goal for themselves, they see the tax advantage nature of it. You walk through all the concepts that we build throughout the program, and we start to look at it and say, this is the synthesis of money vehicle. And so that is the singular item that if I could look at a room full of NFL rookies, a room full of recent ATO grads, a room full of high school students, doesn't matter. You set up that account, you are worlds ahead of people who were financially illiterate for far too long.
Even for college students who are presumably not making any money, or if they are making any money, they're spending it on tuition and everything, all the other expenses with college. So that's what you would tell them. You're not making any money, but go ahead and take this first step.
I am forever amazed at how many students today are having some kind of income with e-commerce, the gig economy. Every student is making money some way or another. So the moment you have any kind of income, you can start that type of an account. And I love to say, with $5, you can go buy a micro share of the S&P 500 in a Roth IRA and see how that grows over time. So yes, if you have started to have some kind of income, that is the beginning of your financial journey. Not all of those dollars need to go into this kind of an account, but having that money bucket system, seeing what percentage you're comfortable with today. I made $1, I saved a dime. That's 10%. I made $1, I saved a dime, put it into that type of an account automatically without question. I think that would be a massive, massive habitual life behavioral change for a student. And if they can start that at 23 when the check is smaller in comparison to when it's going to be bigger at 33 and 43, they're going to have those habits and they're really going to see the fruit of what they've planted.
So an interesting transition from professional football player to money manager. And I want to go back just for a second. So you grew up in California, played high school football, were drafted by Washington State University, went in as a linebacker, but really played tight end mostly, right? And then were an undrafted free agent for the Eagles in 2008. And then in just looking through your history over the next, 18 months?
Failed a lot.
6 teams, 7 teams. So my first question is, how did you decide, or how did you just keep the ability to continue on? You went to a team, you were cut,
Yep.
waived. Went to a team in some instances like 20 days,
Yeah.
waived. So it's just, where did you get that desire to continue to press ahead?
I got a lot of free sweatshirts in my journey, and that's something when you leave, they give you a garbage bag and say, fill it up because you're not coming back. And so that mindset of the ability to deal with failure, that started for me as a young child, and it really came to fruition and solidified itself playing and going around the NFL. My father, growing up, invented a game called King for a Day. And that was me playing against my 2 older brothers, one-on-one basketball. We played 1,000 times, and in that 1,000 times, I won twice. I vividly remember the 2 days walking off the court as king. And one, you better know if you're going to play that game again, you should be a gracious king, because you're not always going to be the king. But looking at it and really identifying how to deal with setback, I go back to the same way I deal with my income today. I invested in myself. I started to look around those rooms. I just got to spend maybe 20 days with the Chicago Bears. First off, how many people would love to do that? That was a dream within itself. And to try to force myself to have that perspective. That did not happen the first 2 times I got cut by the Eagles. It didn't happen early. But once I was able to start jotting down my thoughts and really reflecting on what I was getting to do, boo-hoo, pity party, yes, it hurts, your stomach wrenches, somebody just ripped your heart out, your dream is gone. What did you learn? And if you learned something, it was a worthy stop. Today, I get to look at every team I walked into, find a veteran, find somebody who was finding success, who was the best in the world at what they did, and I stole something from them. Just a simple habit, this a simple thing, one thing I observed them to do, and I took it and I put it within myself. And so that's how I started to look at failure. Just like I did at King for a Day, going out and playing my brothers. I wasn't going to beat them. I knew I wasn't going to beat them until I did. And then we stopped playing, which was unfortunate in all of itself.
Right.
But looking at it and saying, if that's not my goal, what is my goal? My goal is to make Jed better. And so I started to look at my travels through the NFL, learning a new position. You mentioned, I love to claim it. I have 2 claims from my NFLs. Number 1, I was All-State as a linebacker, All-Pac-10 as a tight end, and then All-Pro as a fullback. I don't know many other players who changed positions and got to achieve that same level. The other one is I'm also one of the only NFL players that is a skilled position running a 5 flat 40. You look at any draft board, anybody in the game today, nobody runs over a 5 flat. Somehow I got to survive and make it in there. But it was the ability to deal with that adversity, to see the shortcomings, and to then identify what were those people doing that I wasn't. And then if I got an opportunity in football or in life, how can I take what those people were doing and make it a part of what I needed to do? And that's where a lot of my principles of life came from. I think we miss the focus, and the reason for sport is to teach you principles for life, not to make you an NFL player. If you get to get into that dream, that's amazing, but we got to stop looking at, oh, I want my kid to be a scholarship athlete. That's not the win of sport. The win of sport is getting knocked down and getting your butt back up, because that's something you're going to do when you're 30, 50, even when you're 75.
Is that part of your message as well? Not only to rookies, but to college students. I think this generation, because of social media and the fact that they can like or not like or subscribe or unsubscribe at will. In fact, that's sort of the what everyone thinks about when they subscribe. Oh, I can just quit whenever I want to. In terms of the stick-to-itiveness, ATOs, for example, we have men who I get resignation letters all the time saying, this has been great, 2 years, and I quit.
Yeah.
Right. So the message of, yeah, there is more, even when you don't see it, perhaps there's more to this. Perhaps you can offer something to the men by continuing to be with the organization, as opposed to saying, I've gotten everything I can get out of it, so I quit. And probably there's still more that you can get out of it if you just don't quit.
And I get to quote a good friend, Washington State grad, New Orleans Saint, Steve Gleason, who has Team Gleason. Man, has changed his world.
ATO.
ATO. There you go. Perfect full circle there. And one of his quotes, being in Team Gleason, having ALS, not being able to move his body is awesome ain't easy. And so I look at that quote, and what does that say is most people turn around. Most people quit. And I have that voice in my head when I want to quit, when I want to turn around. That just reminds me, awesome ain't easy. How many people are turning around today? What is on the other side of this hurdle? What is on the other side of that wall? How much better does it become the harder it gets? And so that is my challenge to a young man in ATO, a young man in a career. Yeah, the easy option is to just hit snooze and go back to sleep. That's an easy option every day. And that option will always be there. But what is on the other side? What does excellence feel like? What is it to be part of something awesome? It's not going to be easy. And there's going to be a lot of detractors. There's going to be a lot of people who turn around. But when you look at your journey and you say, the less and the harder, the more I cherished, that's truly when you get to take pride in something.
So in your NFL career, finally started to pay off for you when you went to New Orleans and were with the Saints, right? And so that was certainly success. You saw success and became a starter pretty quickly, right, after you joined the team. So what did you learn from that? Success versus all of the setbacks that you had in the previous, 2.5 years, and then getting to a place where you were seeing not just a little bit of success, but a great deal of success.
I won a 30-second story on how I became the starter was during the NFL lockout. Interesting saga in and of itself, but one of the final kind of caveats was anybody who was a free agent at the time couldn't practice for 2 days. The Saints actually paid a free agent fullback to come in and be the starter, but he couldn't get on the field for 2 days. So I had 2 days where I got to go stand next to Drew Brees in the huddle and be amongst the starters. And that, I think, was the changing point for me mentally. I was there. I had to start believing, and I had already started to work on my mental exercises, but I looked at it and said, I belong here. I deserve to be here. Watch me. And so once that other player got to get his pads on and get out on the field, there was nowhere in the world that somebody was going to take this away from me. And so I got to taste it, and I got to experience it, and then I really got to compete for it. And what I realized was you are always the best hunter when you're the hungriest. and to try to find and manifest that thing in yourself that is driving to get more, to compete and to get better. And that, again, I remember talking to a good guy. His name's Darren Sproles, smallest guy I've ever played with, and he's an NFL legend, NFL great. We got to go to the Hall of Fame, and I saw, and we got to walk up and be like, Sprolesy, dude, you're in the Hall of Fame. Darren, who do you compete with? Last year, you set the NFL record for the most yards in history. I'm asking them this in an off-season workout. He said, Jed, I compete with the same guy I compete with every year. I said, all right, cool. Who? Show me him. Myself. And it's that lens of, once I became a starter, I wasn't going to start comparing myself to the other player. I wasn't even going to compare myself to the other fullbacks in the league, of which I'm very proud to say I became the number one fullback. But it was because I consistently showed up and said, here is my week. How each day, every day do I come in and I get better each day in the week? That was the shift and the change, because once I even got a competitive level playing field, I knew I was going to pull ahead. Today in financial education, my company, we are drawn equal to some of these national brands, national companies, these powerhouses who've been in the industry for 30 years. We're now nose to nose. And I look at it and I laugh and I go, we've already beat them. Because tomorrow I'm going to get that much better. The next day we're going to pull that much farther ahead. And so I looked at my time as a starter and started to say, great, congratulations, now what? Now how do you improve every day?
And so from NFL to money vehicle, how did that come about? So you finally retired from the NFL, said, now what?
Now what?
And decided to get into financial management?
I was one of the few who saw the path before the path was there. Part of getting cut a dozen times and knowing the journey is going to be over. Again, the dots don't connect forward, they connect backwards, Steve Jobs. But as you look at it, I saw the NFL as an amazing platform, but I was never going to be the $10, $100 million guy who never had to work. So as I looked at my first paycheck, I got it in Cleveland, my first game check in Cleveland, Ohio at an extended stay apartment. I remember looking at the envelope because they didn't have auto deposits set up, which is actually something I'm proud of. Every team I went through, I went into their HR and I said, that's unfair. You guys need automatic deposits. I would get in the guy's car and see a $100,000 check just sitting on the ground. They hadn't deposited it. And full circle, the team got to have interest on that every day that $100,000, and I'm sure it was a lot more than that, wasn't going deposited. And so that first paycheck for me in Cleveland, Ohio, really showed me how little I understood about money. Why? Because I looked at this big paycheck, this NFL dream, and I had spent every dime of it before the envelope was even opened. I was buying an engagement ring for the girl who was with me. She's still my wife 15 years later. Cute story, blah, 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 great investment, but a very poor financial habit. So for me, Money Vehicle began that day, that night that I couldn't sleep, because that night was when the statistics started to come into my head. 72% of professional athletes go broke 5 years within playing. I just got my first big check and I was back at zero. That shook me. That really scared me to the point of, why didn't I understand this? Where was the class, Win? Where was the teacher that was supposed to show me what to do with these dollars? I never had that class. So from that day in 2008 on, I became my first student. Went into Borders bookstore, would go down the personal finance aisle, pick up Rich Dad Poor Dad, has changed millions of lives, pick up Susie Orman, Dave Ramsey, whoever was there, let me read and see and understand. That drove me to a mentor. My mentor challenged me to get my CFP, the Certification in Financial Planning. And truly, as I evolved in the game, as my career started to take off, this passion started to take off. Because as I was established in New Orleans, now players were coming up to me and asking me questions. 401k, why would I put money into my 401k? I'm 23, I don't care about that. It was an amazing epiphany for me to realize I loved learning about this language. I loved even more sharing it, and to see players start to make the changes and the decisions to defy those odds and defy those statistics that everybody loves to throw around. So once I was done with the game and the game was done with me, I got to go into wealth management, and as I was in there for about 5 years, I realized very respectable profession, very interesting path, wasn't my purpose. Wasn't what I was going to wake up every day and get excited about. I loved the idea of helping people end their journey the way they wanted. I loved even more helping people start their journeys. So that's where I went and said, wealth management is where I want people that I touch to end up, but I wanted to go and impact them earlier. And so that's where the financial education side of me really got to a point where I needed the confidence to take the leap. And yeah, about 3 months before the global pandemic, Money Vehicle went out on its own, and yeah, we've been growing every day since.
So online, ATOs have the opportunity to go online. You've redesigned it a little bit so that it is more consumable, perhaps, by
Less
college.
is more.
Less is more. So talk about that in terms of, I'm an ATO, I want to go online, you can go to ato.org. You can send emails out with your link. You can go to Money Vehicle to find it. But what would an undergraduate who's starting this typically experience?
Jump in the course. Course is on demand. It is short, 3 to 5 minute videos. We understood who we were targeting it for. Our videos have been called funny, silly, cheesy, anything but boring. That was our goal. We wanted to keep your attention on the screen for the next 3 to 5 minutes. If we entertain you, that is everything. But the message is around education. We're there to teach you. So we wanted to put it through a lens that will get you engaged, but the empowerment side is what we're after. It is a full, big program, big course. We understand college students don't have time. That is the biggest hurdle that they face right now until they graduate, and then reality hits, and there's a whole lot of other challenges that come. But in school, time management is such a struggle that we said, you may not have 10, 20, 30, 40 hours to invest. Give us one. Can you give us 1 hour, focus in on a subject, get your completion, get your certification, and move forward from there? One of the questions we get so repeatedly is around credit cards, credit scores, reports. And so that is the first lesson we wanted to start with, because it's so tangible and it has such a specific, I don't want to say easy, but it has a specific action that everybody can take. Even if it's just getting your first credit card, how to go get your first credit card, and then how to understand your financial reputation and your credit score. That is an hour-long course that you end with a credit score certification from Money Vehicle, and you end with action items regardless of where you are on your journey. Then we'll get into investing, we'll get into taxes, we'll get into cash management. Those are the next steps, and they're all going to be seen through that 1 hour lane. And so if you can dedicate 15 minutes on 4 Saturdays in a row, 1 hour on a Friday, or maybe not Friday, but let's give it a Tuesday evening. When can you give us an hour to invest in you? And that's really what we want them to see the connection to. Why we created the course the way we did, why we're delivering it the way we are, is because this is a vital life skill we want you to have and to use. And so we wanted to understand how best to give it to you.
Great. Well, Jed, thanks for your time today. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for everything you do with ATO and Money Vehicle. I know the guys very much appreciate when they see you in person up at either the Congress or the President's retreat or National Awards celebration. They enjoy that, and the financial information that you bring them. I think that it definitely gets traction. So if you're interested, and I would encourage you to be interested, definitely go to ato.org. You can log on there, or an email your consulting email with a link to Jed's courses. Thanks again, Jed.
Thank you.